We'd like to thank the following sponsors for helping provide this video.
Worked with more than 70 companies, over 2,000 software professionals, over a decade of work in Agile, and many, many years in the software industry. And I'm very much looking forward to Gil and learning more about how to deal with that really, really, really hard stuff for people. Thank you.
Well, I am going to ask you to stand up for a reason. Wait. If you've been working with a team or in a team, in a company, anything, any setup that has been calling itself Agile for the past 6 months or more, stand up. So, if you're pleased with the results that your teams are getting, stay standing. All right. If you think that at the rate things are going, things will be better or the same in 2 years, stay standing. Okay. One brave soul. All right. Thank you. So as you can tell, you can all sit down now, right? So as you can tell, not everybody has outstanding success with Agile. That promise of hyper-productive teams somehow is kind of hard to see in practice, right? And as far as I know, people go to Agile for certain promises, right? To be more productive, to be more responsive, adaptive, collaborative, all the good stuff, right? But I can tell you from what I've seen, talking with people, not just my clients, right? But talking with people at the conferences and pretty much everywhere I go, and the results are not all that great. So we are here today to take a look at a key element of success in Agile, and that is to have great teams. Now, great teams isn't something that you can just magically make happen. It's something that you need to invest in, and this takes leadership. So we're going to take a look at leadership today. Now, you've all seen this. I started in Agile about the time this was written, so 2001. And I started in extreme programming, XP. XP is all about technical excellence, right? And it's great, we still need it. I just spent the last 4 days teaching it. But the authors of the manifesto said something a little bit different. They deliberately chose this one to be first, right? Saying that it's really all about the people who use the processes and the people who apply technical discipline and how they interact. That's the stuff that counts. Everything else counts too. That counts even more, right? And so again, even though I started in this type of environment, I've been writing code for so many years. I was managing people who wrote code. I was an architect for a while. It's really the people side of things that fascinated me more. And I still like my processes and tools, but I can get better results with individuals and interactions. Because I think this is really where the money is, so to speak. However, there's very little you can find that will show you what that actually means, right? So the manifesto says individuals and interactions, right? We talk about self-organization and collaboration and lots of big words and empowerment, right? But how do you actually do that? And there are very few resources out there that you can rely on to get that type of information. This is the book I wrote 2.5 years ago. It is, to date, one of about 10 in total that you can get on the subject of people in Agile. Now, actually, there was supposed to be a box here with several copies of this book, so you could get some if you wanted, but apparently it was delivered to somebody who was not me. Yeah, so I can show you later what we can do with this. Anyway, I think the world hasn't yet received the memo that this stuff counts, and also how to go about doing it. And today we're going to focus on building great teams. And this is where everybody here has something to contribute, right? So many of you know the Agile theory, right? So for organizing teams, and the team owns the process and all of this. But what about managers? Who here is a manager? We still need you, despite what they say, right? Because even though an Agile organization is made up of teams that turn ideas into products, you guys hold up the value stream. You guys make the organization as a whole work. Okay, the other punching bag. Who here is a project manager? Yeah, we still need you too. And we need you because we want to make sure that all those little things that people produce, that actually they make up a whole, right? So the whole is not just a sum of parts, it's an integral thing. Scrum Masters and team leads. A lot less, interesting. You are the people that the teams look up to help them organize, right? You're not there to book meetings and buy food, right? You're not there to ask people to recite 3 questions or 3 answers. You're there to help them become great teams. Just for my own curiosity, anybody who did not raise his hand or her hand and has another role, what is it?
Business analyst.
VA, okay.
A producer.
Producer, what is that?
It's basically everything. I suppose it's
Okay.
it's sort of like being a project manager.
Okay. Fair enough. One more?
Oh, they're also producers primarily just find the money, so
Ah.
so my role is finding money.
Money's good, okay. Any other role? Yes?
Agile coach.
Coach, of course, right. And of course you have internal coaches and external coaches, so I'm external, right? And so for the rest of an hour or so, we're going to focus on the human side of your role. Whether you're a coach, a producer, a manager, a director, a project manager, it doesn't matter. The human side of your role, as far as I'm concerned, the stuff that counts. What I'm going to share with you actually is a very condensed version of a 2-day workshop, right? It takes that long to teach some of the basic skills that have to go there. So, has everybody received a handout? We're not going to read them yet, but does everybody have one? Cool. Okay, our volunteers have some and they will get them over to you. Okay. So, let's start with this one. Okay? We're going to start by looking at what makes teams, what makes them tick. Then we'll be looking at what you want to do and not do. And then we will spend, well, basically the second half of the talk talking about particular skills that you need to apply there and the activities that you engage in order to make all of this happen. So, this is what makes an Agile team. Right? An Agile team is not 7 ± 2 resources. That word should be stricken from the lexicon. Instead, it's people, flesh and blood, and it can be any number. The key distinguishing factor is that they're there to deliver value. Okay? To define the value and to deliver the value. We like them to be cross-functional so they can actually complete meaningful stuff and not just parts of the stuff. And we also want, of course, all necessary skills represented. Now, in Agile, we like to give those teams autonomy. Now, it's not full autonomy, they still work within an organization, so it's really semi-autonomy. I much prefer this word to empowerment. This is a distinction I learned from Jim Highsmith. And I think it's a lot more powerful because it means that the team can actually sort of feel in charge as opposed to feel as if something has been granted to them. So somebody's doing them a favor. And of course, for a team to be not just a good team like that, for them to also be an Agile team, we want them to be manifesting the principles and values, really the mindset, okay? So if you go to a meeting every day and you stand up for 15 minutes, that does not make you Agile. But if you closely collaborate with your customer, if you simplify, if you don't move without a test, if you look for feedback, all of those things, that would qualify you as Agile. Now, everybody here, think to yourself and recall a team that you have been part of, or maybe just met, a team that was really good. And let's explore what happened there. What made them good? Okay. We want to see what makes great teams tick. We're going to follow this model. This model is known as the logical levels. It's a thinking tool that applies to how people approach stuff, including change, right? Including how they see the world. Okay? And we're going to start at the bottom. So who wants to share one thing that if you think about that team, what do you observe? Just facts, data, any observable element about that good team. What would it be? We're not going to run mics for this. It's just going to be a word or two each. Yes?
They communicated extremely well.
Communicated extremely well. Okay. Yes?
Respect.
Respect. They respect each other. Okay, cool. They
Trust.
trust. Okay. One more.
React to abrupt changes.
They react to abrupt changes. Okay. And
Share.
they share. What do they share? Anything, right?
Information.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Encouraged to take risks.
Okay. And they encourage each other, I guess, to take risks. Or
By management rather than starting the team.
okay. Cool. And
They were accountable.
they're accountable. Let's go one level up. I'm going to hear from many of you. Get all of that. How do they act? Right? And what can they do? So you have your hand up.
They supported each other.
They support each other.
They collaborate.
They collaborate.
They're not territorial.
Not territorial. Okay?
They're clear on their role definitions.
Their roles are clear. Okay, cool. Now, let's go one level up to a level that you cannot see. Right? If you were to ask them, they might be able to articulate it. What do they believe?
That they belong as part of the team.
That they belong as a team. Okay. Yes?
Their purpose is working software.
Their purpose is working software. Cool. Okay.
They believed they could do it.
We can do it. And
They believe what they're doing has value.
what we're doing has value, right? Okay. Now, about beliefs, we have something that's a lot more ingrained. Beliefs can be changed. Beliefs are something we hold true but can't prove. Values, the stuff that's important to us. Now we're talking personality. Okay, so thinking about that team, what was important to them? It's harder to answer, right? You can't see that. Yes?
Contribution.
Contribution, okay?
Sense of accomplishment.
A sense of accomplishment.
They didn't believe in shoddy work. They wanted to do something good.
So it was important to them to do something
It's
good?
an internalized value.
Right.
You know, I do something that has value.
Right. You actually said two things, right? So there's doing something valuable and we value quality work, right? So that's two things.
Relationships.
We value relationships, okay?
Respect.
Respect, okay? And?
I learned something.
And learning, okay? Absolutely. All right. Now, if you were to reverse engineer all of that, what motivates them to be here, to be part of the team, to do the work? So all these things were important, but altogether, what's the motivation? Yeah,
Making a difference.
making a difference. That's one of the top ones. What is another one?
Being successful.
To be successful, okay.
Delighting customers.
Delighting customers, which is a lot better than satisfying them, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Anyone else? Dave? Mastering skills. So what we heard so far is basically the set of typically found motivators. Okay, fair enough. But now for the key question. What makes them succeed? So of all of these things, what is key to their success? And remember, success is, again, delivering value that delights customers and such, right? So what is the key to their success? Yes?
A sense of care
Sense of care.
through all levels.
We care. Okay.
Like being flexible.
And flexibility, right, which is one of the two top values of Agile, right? Yes?
Their team.
The team. So how is the team the key to their success?
All the things that go into forming a team
Uh-huh.
are that essential ingredient that differentiates them.
So it's like you put the individuals together and the whole is stronger than the sum? Yeah. That's, yeah, that's why we put people in teams. Yes?
Their abilities and skills
Right, their abilities and skills. Right, well, without the abilities and skills, you cannot really do that, right? But we know a lot of teams that have the abilities and skills and still don't quite deliver, right? Yes?
Shared experience.
Shared experience, say more.
It's kind of the military tries to get people into small groups that kind of share everything together.
Right, so they have shared history, they know how they work,
Yes.
right? So I know what you're good at and what upsets you, and you know the same about me. Okay, so let's put this in practice. This model has been around for almost 50 years. I guess it will be 15 next year. So it predicts Agile, but applies quite as well. The reason we even put people in teams is that nice little state called performing. So the team comes together, they need to figure each other out and how to work together. In Agile, you see this when retrospectives amount to basically nothing, and they can't even agree on how to estimate, or things like that. So they're still storming, right? Eventually, hopefully, sometimes they get out of that, they get into norming where they start learning how to work together. The model seems to imply that this is a smooth transition, but it's not. It's actually a phase transition. And the key to the phase transition here is that when a team is in storming, they work together because they have to. We work together because, well, we're both employed here. Okay, so somebody put us together in the team, I guess we gotta have to work together. Normally, we actually want to be together because that way we can do stuff that individually we cannot. But qualitatively, this doesn't buy you a whole lot over just keeping them separate in their cubes and reporting to a manager and getting status. Because the team has overhead, it has emotional investment, it has time investment, coordination, all this stuff, right? So we actually want to get them to performing. This is where the total output is greater than the sum of the individual productivity. Unfortunately, this is not a stable state either. And organizations tend to knock their teams out of performing on a regular basis. For instance, how? Who wants to suggest? Sorry?
Changing the team.
Yeah, changing teams around, especially if they use matrix. Right? The matrix structure. You had a hand up?
Same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the most common one, isn't it? There was also a hand there in the back. So how else do companies knock their teams out of performing?
Providing a target date.
Providing what?
Providing a delivery date, committing to a date.
Committing them, right? You have now been committed to deliver something 2 months from now. Now go figure it out, right? And people will scramble. Performing and scrambling don't quite work well together. Maybe it's an emergency. There was one more hand there. Yes?
Changing the goals too frequently.
Changing the goals. So how can we be successful if success keeps shifting? There's another one. We hire into the team. They never asked for it, right? We bring them somebody, hey, meet your new buddy. He's going to be the new senior dev on the team. Welcome. Yay. In my world, teams have veto right over hiring and over specific candidates.
Does that exist actually in real life?
Of course it does. Well, it does. Everything I have to show you is theory backed by practice because people do this stuff. Yeah. Teaching theory alone wouldn't be a good idea, right? All of what I have to show you here, it has been done many times over. Those of you who work in really big companies probably haven't seen anything like this. Medium-sized companies, maybe. Small ones, a bit more. But the world is getting there. Slowly but surely it's getting there. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to point out in this regard is that when it comes to getting people to work together nicely, it's not just the naive model of what we have in the lower ellipse, which is the Agile team, or if you have a Scrum team, it's the same thing, just with different things. Because there are lots more people involved, and sometimes we have many, many people in the top one. All right, so all those stakeholders and managers and sponsors, sometimes we have two, not just one. So these are people we need to reckon with, right? They're important, and we need to look at the relationships that we have with all of them, which makes the work of leaders a whole lot harder, right? So, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to start using that handout. We're going to look at how managers and leads affect their team's success. So, if you're, again, a manager or a PM or a Scrum Master, director, doesn't matter, I would prefer that you be a leader, not just a manager, or not just a position of authority, because when you lead people, you just get better results, right? So, there's a lot of well-known body of knowledge around management. Leadership, especially in technology, especially in Agile, a lot less, right? So how do you do that? How do you support your team? So, turns out that there's a lot you can do, and I've broken this down into two lists, and that's what you have on the first page. The first list, which is what you see on the left, is all the good old stuff we've always wanted, right? We want our leads to energize the team and motivate people, to recognize success, to talk about the vision, where are we going, we break down silos, give feedback. This is all good stuff. There's no point repeating it here. However, cue Agile, and all of a sudden, a focal point in the organization is no longer the individual, it's the team. And so now, if you do this stuff, it's extra important. So this is good, again, management or leadership, but especially in a team-centric environment. Now, I cannot possibly get into all of these now, right? But I just want to point out why they're important, and I made the handout for you so that you can have a record of this. Question?
Yeah. What are these things can one do as a non-manager? Like if you're an individual contributor in the team itself, what are some of these that you can do?
A lot of these, actually. So if you look at what we have here, keeping people informed, right, that's normal, right? You want to keep your team members informed, you want to give some feedback and so on, but all the stuff about vision and motivation and what does success mean for the organization, that's probably a bit beyond the individual contributor. However, if you look at this, there's a lot of stuff that anyone can do. People have a good level of innate leadership that most organizations simply don't recognize or even want to see, right? So I think it's incredibly valuable to get that out of people and allow them to apply it. If you're in a leadership position, that's what you spend most of your time doing, right? For instance, protecting the team's autonomy. What does that look like? Can somebody give an example? Yes.
Standing outside the door with a baseball bat, keeping people.
Standing outside the door with a baseball bat.
Making sure they don't get interrupted.
To keep interruptions away. Okay, so that's one thing. It allows them to focus. Does it affect their autonomy, though? Yes.
Dealing with the sponsors and the stakeholders and getting them to understand how the team got to the solution.
Right.
How it matches to the requirements.
So basically building bridges between the business and technology on why things happen a certain way and where are we going. Absolutely. Holding the team accountable. Accountable to what?
Commitment.
To the commitment. To the commitment that they made. Not the commitment that somebody made on their behalf. Right? Okay. Defining team success. Turns out that a lot of teams think that success means on time and on budget. Not sexy. Okay? Success means something else. It means making a difference, right? It means retaining customers. It means new markets. It means making users' lives easier. It means a whole lot of things. Yes?
Is it also defining what done means?
That has to do with it, absolutely. So it's definitely related to done. Okay? Draw out team wisdom. We're going to be talking about this later on, right? But if we have people now in a team, and we say that the team is sort of the center element here, the unit, right? They're going to have to decide stuff together. the typical mode that we like for Agile is consensus. Well, consensus is one thing, but it arises in the notion that the team has a shared wisdom. Well, how do you get that out of people? How do you make that happen? So we'll talk about this close to the end. You know, in traditional management, people didn't talk this way, right? We don't need team wisdom. Everybody has their own wisdom, and then the manager shall collect that and act accordingly, right? Managing behaviors. What sort of behaviors derail teams?
Hoarding information.
Hoarding information, right? Yes?
Cowboy programmers that like to work on their own.
Cowboy programmers, yeah. Okay, one more? Yes?
Overdominance.
Overdominance, right. Sometimes there's the flip side of it. People are just too quiet, right? You go to a meeting, guys, let's plan together. Silence. Okay, so what are we doing next? And everybody's just waiting for someone else to go first, right? Okay, supporting self-organization. Right? Self-organization isn't something that erupts naturally on teams. Okay? Maybe it does in nature, but in teams, and especially because they're made up of individuals and there is an organization around them with all its constraints and all its expectations and pressures, self-organization, right? So you do need to support it. Let's see, which one should we also talk about? Reframing failure. You know, Agile consultants like to talk about fail fast, right? And learn from failure. And this sounds great until you actually meet reality and you realize people don't like to fail. But people do like to learn, and you know, especially in technology, they like experiments. They like feedback. So if you use these words, you get a better chance. Okay, now, let's talk about all the stuff you should avoid doing. What you should avoid doing is stuff that you might be tempted to do because of short-term results. But long-term, not so great. Again, two lists. The first one, the stuff we never liked and we still don't like. Right? We never liked micromanagement. We never liked having silos. That's not good for business. What else? We never liked when managers looked at setbacks, normal setbacks, and called that failure. Right? We never liked playing favorites. Oh, but again, in Agile, because it's team-centric, there are a bunch more things that you probably should avoid doing because the impact, the consequence is that much worse, right? It will usually mean that your team gets to live in storming for quite a while. Oh, by the way, I should point out that it's quite often that teams appear to norm, but they're actually storming. So you think that they're doing okay, they're friendly, they talk, right? They sort of help each other, but they don't really want to be there. Okay, so that's definitely a problem for you. Okay, so let's look at this list. That's what you have again on page number 2. Okay, Agile welcomes change. Change happens, and we might as well organize ourselves to make it good for us, right? Says so in the manifesto even. Well, a lot of managers I know, well, they might talk about this. When it comes down to the wire and some changes happening, like a significant change in requirements, or you've got fewer people now, or whatever, they resist it because they're personally uncomfortable. And guess what? Leadership, you'll be uncomfortable most of the time. Sorry. The second point. So, we want to make decisions. The team makes a lot of the how decisions. Not so much the what, but a lot of the how. Raise your hand if you're in a situation where if a team made many of the how decisions, managers would just be, yeah, cool, let's run with it. What, 2 people, 3, 4, 5, okay. People get nervous. What, a whole group decided something, can we trust them? Were they informed? They consider everything? So that is something that any leader is going to really struggle with. A typical example of this is Scrum Masters, right? Scrum Masters who used to be project managers, right? Who used to be responsible, a wringable neck, right? And all of a sudden, the team is making all sorts of decisions as a Scrum Master, you're supposed to support them. Guys, sure, dude, go ahead, run with it. Oh my God. So you get nervous off it, huh? That's normal. The third point, almost every team I've ever encountered, somebody comes up with a story, an epic, something substantial, right? What's the first reaction? How much is this going to cost us? Valid question, estimate. Let's go ask the tech lead. Tech lead makes an estimate. Estimate becomes a commitment, right? It's now a binding commitment on the people who are going to build it, and they never had any input into this, okay? Or you see managers making this call, and so on. Any type of promise or commitment on somebody else's behalf, including when that someone is a team, that's problematic. A lot of Agile teams fail to thrive because others committed them to something. Simple as that. We already talked about hiring, undermining team commitments. Oh, this one happens a lot, right? So a team made a commitment for an iteration. We're going to get this much done. Okay, these stories. All of a sudden somebody comes in, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that other thing for me? Just one more item, who's going to know? And before you know it, they have less time to do stuff. Maybe they would have missed the commitment anyway, but now they definitely have less time to do that. Teams get very nervous and upset about this. Okay? Especially when they show up for a demo or review meeting and people get on their case, you missed your commitment. It's very hard for individuals, it's scary to say, yeah, so-and-so came in and interrupted us. The second from last, who here is a parent? Yeah, this is the same as parenting, right? Your kids will grow to be that much more resilient and responsible and whatnot, and I'm saying this as a father of twins who recently turned 11. That's pair programming. That's what it really means. Anytime you get the urge to solve a problem that they could solve on their own, although it would take longer and the quality of the outcome may not be perfection itself, yeah, you need to be careful about that, right? And so that's when we talked about servant leadership, because in servant leadership, the leader actually does step back, you know, on many occasions, letting the team try stuff out and occasionally fail. Yes, organizations don't like failure. What can you do? And the last one, yeah, so that has to do with cowboys and such, right? Yeah, I'm not going to get into this much. It's quite hot in here, isn't it?
Sure is.
Yes, can we do something about that? Who's removing that impediment? So, in order to pull all of this off, you need a whole slew of skills and qualities. Now, I did say that everybody has a level of innate leadership. It doesn't mean everybody wants to do it. If you do want to be this sort of leader of people, as opposed to a manager of tasks, as opposed to a coordinator of resources, you will need all of this. There's probably more. 17 is enough. Okay. Part of my mission in life is to make workplaces, especially software development workplaces, more effective and humane and responsible. And this is one of the ways to do this, by helping people develop these skills. Now, I can't help you with charisma, but I can help you with a few things. And what I want to do with you for the next half of the talk is to look at the top 3 that I believe will make the biggest difference for you starting tomorrow morning. And they're these 3. So let's start with communication. Everybody has a paragraph saying great communication skills in their LinkedIn profile, right? It's in every job description, right? Everyone. Okay, why? What does it mean? Yes?
It's essential to get anything done.
How? How is it essential to getting stuff done? What's the ingredient here that matters? What do you not have when somebody does not have communication skills? Get the back.
People understand your intent and you are able to understand theirs.
So you've got your point across. Yeah, in the back?
Your entire team working together works a lot better if you all work together and not overlapping and not
Okay.
fighting each other.
So it's an act of coordination, right? Okay.
People understand the goal. Where are we going?
Okay, so it's about sharing purpose, yes? And then in the very back, we haven't heard, no, behind you, we haven't heard from her.
Transferring knowledge.
Transferring knowledge, okay, and behind you? Interaction, but what about interaction? What's important about it? Okay, and producer?
Oh, I was gonna say, there's a lot that you learn from embodied knowledge of being with someone.
And learning,
It's
right?
learning them just by being next to them.
Yeah, so there's a lot about learning and coordination, not just about, passing information that's around. Okay, so let's look at this specifically. 4 keys to effective communication. 4 things that I like to bring to every conversation that I have, one-on-one or one group. First one is this. In other words, if I'm going to start up a conversation with you, Chris, what do I want out of it? Do I want to inform you, decide with you, get to know you, relax? What do I want? And what do you want out of it? Okay? Hopefully those purposes align, right? You know how a lot of the things we do in Agile have some sort of purpose in mind, and that's the value we're delivering. Well, every conversation and interaction should be like that. Okay? The second one is presence. Presence means that I bring myself into the conversation, and that's where I actually am. My mind is not wandering to what could possibly be more important than this. I don't have my phone bugging me. I'm not worrying about all the stuff I'm missing while I'm here talking with you. Okay? So presence has to do with, are we really communicating or are we just exchanging words? Okay. One example of presence is, let's say you're having a conversation at work, if you actually turn off some of your distractions. It used to be that we had to step away from our computer, but now you actually have to step away from your phone. Sometimes you have to step away from your coworkers, right? Rapport. So rapport has to do with the subconscious signals that we send to each other about, do we actually want to be here, right? So if I'm starting up a conversation with you, even out of sheer politeness, you'll stay and listen. But if I stay standing and you stay sitting, how long can this go on, right? It will feel wonky. Notice people at work, when they start a conversation, you can tell that they're engaged. If they start like this, like maybe one walked over and to a person who's at their computer, very soon one will either sit down or one will get up, right? But that's because as human beings, we work this way, right? We send each other all these messages all the time and we don't even notice them, and they have to do with our body language, they have to do with our posture. That's what people know about like posture, right? If we kind of look alike. But there's more. There's the tone of voice. There's the speed of speech. There are the pauses that we have in our talk. If I keep speaking like this, and you go on like this, one of us is going to run out of patience. So rapport has to do with how we are being together in the conversation. And the last one is empathy, right? Do you know what the other person is going through? You don't have to know their life history, but you can usually tell if they're feeling miserable about something, or they're feeling excited, or whatever. And there are certain things that you might bring up in a conversation, or certain things you might avoid, because you know what it's like for them, right? We do this in our personal lives all the time. If you talk to your significant other, and he or she is in a happy mood, bringing in bad news will be, a double whammy. Right? And sometimes you might choose to delay those news by a few minutes or an hour or a day because it's not going to land well. So let's walk through an example. You're going into one-on-one meeting with the team members. So you're in some form of, again, leadership position. Maybe you're that person's boss. That's a typical one-on-one. How would you prepare using these keys?
Turn off your devices and don't go in your office.
Okay, that's one thing. So you turn off your devices and you don't go into your office, so that will give you presence. Okay, so that's one thing.
You think clearly about what the purpose of the conversation is?
Let's give an example
An example of the purpose of the conversation.
of the one-on-one. What ought to be the purpose of the one-on-one between manager and report?
Performance feedback.
Performance feedback, so the person can grow, right? Yeah. It's not task status. There, I said it. Okay, so the purpose can also be just to inform the other person of updates. Whatever. Okay, so make sure you understand the purpose, and especially in a situation like this where there's a power disparity, make sure the other person knows it as well, right? I see too many, I get to visit too many companies where people walk into their one-on-one with trepidation because they don't know what's going to happen. If they know the purpose, and the purpose is career growth, personal development, it's not to beat someone up over a missed deliverable. That's something different. Okay. What will you do for rapport? How can you make rapport possible as opposed to impossible? Yes?
You might come out from behind your desk.
Yeah, come out from behind the desk, right? Because when there's a desk, half of you is invisible. Right? Yes?
You might pick a neutral room to meet.
Pick a neutral room to meet. Why would you do that?
Well, when someone comes into your office, you're kind of
There's a baggage.
Boss.
Right?
Right,
There's baggage associated with coming into your office. Right, okay. So you're moving into neutral ground.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
It's a turf thing.
Turf thing,
So you
yeah.
Go on a neutral field or,
Yes.
or even potentially go to their.
Yes. There was a hand up in the back.
It's
Yes.
just distractions. People don't walk in, oh, but I just have to ask.
Right. So when people walk in and distract you, they take away your presence. They also break rapport. Right? And re-establishing rapport is hard. It's really hard. By the way, you know how you can sometimes read online all sorts of recommendations, how to spice up your meetings and stuff like that. And one of the popular recommendations is go for a walk. Right? Go for a walk and talk together. That one actually doesn't work that well. Because when you walk together, it's really hard to maintain rapport. If we're side by side, you cannot see my signals. And the most we can do is kind of turn our head sideways, but then we just bump into stuff, so we're being extra careful, right? So when we're so careful, we eliminate rapport. Yes?
Unless the person has difficulty with face-to-face stuff, there are people who...
Yes, and some people will not maintain eye contact.
Much more comfortable walking side to side.
Right, so some people will be uncomfortable with this, but rapport does not mean staring, right? Rapport means that, again, on a subconscious level, it's not like I'm telling you my spine is now at the same angle as yours. I'm not saying that, but you can see. Now, if you're with someone who is uncomfortable with proximity, you can have auditory rapport, which means that you sort of speak at the same level, again, the same type of pauses, same type of tone, right? You don't need to fake anything, but you fall naturally into this rhythm. You do this, you've been doing this for years on the phone, right? So it is possible. Okay, I want to move on. How will you have empathy? Yes?
Ask them how they're doing.
How are you
Just in a
doing?
general sense.
Yeah, and the answer will always be, fine. So what can you ask differently? Yeah.
You have to know something about the individual.
You do have to. Yes.
And ask them about that, not about how they're feeling, but, hey, did your husband get that new job, or did your wife, how the kids doing? Something that breaks the ice a little bit.
Yeah, so you do have to know something
That you
about
care about them, I mean, not fake questions, but you gotta be serious about it.
Yeah. Yes.
Ask open-ended questions.
And open-ended questions.
As opposed to yes, no, you know.
Right.
What is going on with you
Yes,
today?
which could be an excellent starting question. And in the back.
Understand their objectives. When do you want to get out of this interaction?
Okay, you can definitely ask it this way. All right, moving on. Coaching. I do this for a living, right? But it turns out that a lot of people have no idea what coaching actually is. They think it's general purpose helping. Okay? So what is coaching actually? I want to give you 3 definitions that somewhat overlap, but not entirely. First one, somebody needs to make progress on something. Typically, options help you do that. Having options as opposed to being stuck with just one. So you are coaching someone when you're offering options because they've run out of what they could come up with on their own, and you're supporting them. Another definition is that you are facilitating, in other words, helping along someone's growth and change, right? So, life coaches do that fine, but you can do this anytime somebody is trying to just get better at something, right? So, if you've come to me and you told me, I'd like to learn how to run meetings better, right? I can help you do that by giving you feedback on how I observe you run meetings. Okay, so that would be an example. Which of course explains why the definitions overlap, and that's the third one. And the third one is, the explicit goal is improving performance on some dimension, right? It could be communication, it could be, again, consultation, it could be whatever. And you do that, you help the person improve performance by helping them be more aware of what's going on, how they're coming across and what are they missing, the blind spots and stuff like that. Now, you can be helpful many different ways. At work, you probably do all of these every day to some extent. Coaching is just one of these. So there are 2 dimensions that we want to pay attention to. One is, how responsible are you for them getting the results they want? Okay. The other dimension is, how responsible are you for their growth? And as you can tell, coaching is high up on responsibility for growth based on the definitions we just saw. So let me give you an example. So I'm an external coach, right? I have my own business, clients call me, they want me to come in and help them. When I come in, I'm not hired muscle, right? I'm there to help them grow. So I will usually find myself in the top row. But different days, different people, different contexts, I'll be doing different things. For instance, quite often I will sit down with a developer and we'll their program, right? We'll write a test, we'll write some code. That means I'm a partner. If I'm sitting with someone, I have some responsibility for the results. Most of the time, I'll be a coach. In other words, I'll be giving you feedback about how you did and what you could do a little differently. In other times, I'll mostly observe and just be there for you. That's a counselor. When you're internal, you can be anywhere on this. So the important thing is not to fall into the trap that coaching is all of that. Okay? I find this matrix to be particularly helpful because every time I start a conversation with someone and I'm trying to be helpful, I need to make sure that we both understand my stance. So if I plop myself down next to a developer and I start writing code with them, am I being a partner or am I being a reflective observer? They need to know. Maybe they expect me to be one, but I'm the other. And then you might hear something like, so, what do you want? Right? I'm sitting here for 20 minutes, I'm not saying anything. Am I being useful or am I wasting your time? What do they come in for? So in every conversation, when you're being helpful, make sure both of you understand things the same way. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. Oh, there is a question.
If I look at a football coach,
yes,
or something like that, seem to have a strong responsibility for the client's results,
right,
much more than coach on this one, and maybe either full or maybe less so for growth. So is that kind of coaching different from the coaching you're talking about here?
So, Agile coaching, okay? Agile coaching, for instance, has 2 parts to it. There's the domain of Agile. I can help you be better at the specific thing called Agile. But there's also coaching in helping you actually want it and do something about it and embrace it and get it. Okay, so I could show you that Agile has iterations and it has stories and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that would be more like teacher, mentor. Right? Or maybe when I just come in, I'm mostly modeling and I'm just doing this for you the first time. But over time I should change this because the whole point of Agile is that you learn on your own from first principles. Right? I can't actually say anything about football coaches because I don't know the first thing about football. I really don't. I have no idea how sports coaches work. I play ping pong. Is anybody here who has gotten to experience good coaching or to see good coaching? What did the coach do?
Observe.
Observe, okay.
Point out when something went well, and to acknowledge it. Like
Acknowledge when things went well.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Try to get the participants involved and make their own decisions on things, and then guided them after
Okay.
seeing results.
Okay, so getting the participants to be involved and drive to their own results. Okay, yes.
Help the participants figure out what to do.
Okay, so help them figure out how to improve. And in the back?
Give you feedback after observing.
Feedback on what? On observations?
Observation.
Yeah, okay. There was somebody else there probably behind the pillar. Yes?
Support.
Support, how?
Just encouraging.
Yeah, sometimes basic encouragement will do the trick, right?
ask questions.
Questions!
Get them to.
Yeah, open
come
questions,
to-
right?
To come to their, to get the answer on questions.
Yeah, so coaches will try to get the answers out of you. It's not so much for the answers themselves, because the questions are meant to help you think and be proactive. Yes?
Ask them to pay attention to something in specific, and then after that, ask them what they experienced.
So point their attention, right? Did you know this? Right? So coaching really has a very basic set of techniques, right? So there's questions, there's feedback, observation, all the stuff we heard here. Whatever kind of coaching you do, and again, I don't know about sports, but when it comes to work or life coaching, career coaching, whatever, this is the basic, these are the basic building blocks. What do you need in order to coach well? Yes?
Trust and respect.
Trust and respect, right?
Listen, empathy.
Empathy, right.
Patience.
Patience, oh, yes. Oh, yes, right?
Enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm. Can you coach well without enthusiasm?
I don't think so.
Okay. They can tell, right? Yeah. Caring. I would go with caring over enthusiasm personally. If I happen to be enthusiastic, then by all means, right? By all means. But caring alone will get me a long way, right? There was somebody else with their hand up. Yeah.
Situational awareness.
Situational awareness. What do you mean by that?
Being aware of what's going on, with whom, what it means, putting it into context.
Okay, so putting it into context. Coaching without context is preaching, right? Yeah. Thou shalt do scrum. Okay. Now, one more thing you need to coach well is to be just a little bit ahead of the coachee. You don't need to be an expert, because coaching is about them growing as people and having options and whatnot, right? So it's really helpful when you've been where they are and now you're a little bit ahead, so you know what it's like. This is how you can have empathy. But you don't need to be an expert yet. Now, one more thing you need is permission. So, let me give you an example. So I'm often hired to come in and essentially coach strangers. So I come into the company, whoever hired me, the guy who signs the checks is not the guy getting the coaching usually, right? It's the people in the teams, it's the managers, it's everybody else but that person. They don't know yet. So we heard about trust and respect. Well, maybe they check out my LinkedIn profile. Does that give them trust and respect? I don't know. So one of the first things I have to do is gain their trust and respect. So I cannot, like one thing I won't do, and that's a term I learned from Liora, I don't do bungee coaching. Thank you for that term, because it explains exactly what some clients want. Well, can you come in for 2 hours and coach my team? No, I cannot. Not only is it a waste of time because it needs to take longer, they won't listen, they'll be polite, they'll sit there. But they won't do anything with that. Except for the maybe 3% who have an open mind and voracious learning appetite who will do whatever they can to learn from somebody who showed up. I've had those, and they tend to be about 2-3%. So you need permission. When you start a coaching conversation, you need to ask for explicit permission. There are many ways of doing that. Will you allow me to come into your mind and help you change it? Some form of that. Sometimes you can ask, well, can I show you something? Or, hey, I noticed that, blah, blah, blah. Would it be cool if? You can do this in many different ways. And unfortunately for everyone here, permission does not extend from one session to the next. Even if the company is paying you to be there and coach. You keep having to make sure that they allow you, because if not, you're wasting your time and their time. All right, the last big thing we're going to cover is facilitation. So, you put 7 to 10 intelligent, hardworking people in a room and expect them to make a decision together. What's likely to happen? Somebody will dominate, it's one thing. What else? Stepping on each other. What else?
No one will speak.
No one will speak. Yeah, that's more common.
You end up with 10 opinions.
10 opinions for 20, right? I'll give you 2 opinions because I don't want to commit. Yeah? Yes?
Let's start by talking about how they're going to approach things rather than what they're going to do.
So they jump into the how before they've done the what. Okay. Anyone else?
They huff a lot, they'll scream a lot.
Talking and screaming, probably no useful outcome. Behind you.
It's likely that everybody will get a chance to speak.
So not everybody will get a chance to speak, right? Is that what you said?
No, I said in facilitation, it's more likely that everybody will.
Right, so this would be the solution.
Right.
Yes?
In some settings, 1 or 2 people might dominate the conversation.
Yeah, okay.
They might also have success.
Say that again?
They do get together, and instead of all these negative things that can happen, they could
You might actually succeed. Yes. So, yes?
You'll get participants who think of every reason why an idea or suggestion will fail.
So in other words, there's a very good likelihood that the meeting will not meet its stated outcome. Well, it turns out that one of the things you need to have in a meeting is in fact the stated outcome. How many people here already this week attended a meeting that did not have an explicit purpose? About half of you. Okay. So, we're going to do an exercise now. This is the question, and I'm going to ask everybody here. I can tell that you have stuff to write on, even if that's your phone. Take 2 minutes to write down your answers to this question. Now, in silence, so just, you in your own thoughts, put a star next to your top 3 ideas. Okay. So, would somebody shout out one of the things that you have starred?
Written
Agenda. What was it?
Expected outcome.
Expected outcome. Okay.
Rules of engagement.
Rules of engagement. Yes.
All decision makers are there.
Roles. Okay.
All decision makers are there.
Decision maker.
Everyone needs to be in the meetings of the meeting.
I'm sorry, I couldn't even hear that.
Everyone who needs to be in the meeting.
Oh, so who needs to participate?
Yeah.
Okay, so participants. Time box. Okay.
Consent.
What does that mean?
Call for commitment, consent, that they agree we're here for this purpose. You have to ask.
Do you mean consensus?
In a sense, you have to ask the permission to facilitate the meeting.
Oh, permission to facilitate the meeting, okay. A what?
Like a traffic cop to make sure that the meeting stays on track.
So staying on track.
Yeah.
It's a traffic cop, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For the sake of clarity, let's say staying on track.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Shared desire for the meeting to succeed.
What designer?
The shared desire
Oh.
for the meeting to succeed.
Okay. One more?
Non-judgmental discussion.
Non-judgmental discussion.
Review at the end of written, what the takeaways are, we have to follow up, and who's doing it.
Freedom to get off topic.
Freedom what? To go off topic? Do you mean flexibility?
Well, to allow for some
Divergence.
delays and, yeah.
Okay, so some form of divergence?
Yeah.
Okay. One more in the back?
Expected action items or commitments in.
Isn't this something we already have? Takeaways. Okay, I'll do some next to yes.
Parking lot for those off traffic.
Parking lot for the off topics, for the later items, right? And yes,
Creating a safe atmosphere?
safe atmosphere. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna go over these items one by one. Before I do that, everybody think to yourself, which are the top 3 of these, not what you wrote, the top 3 of these that you really, really want. So just think, and when I get to those items, when I ask for them, just show of hands, okay? So take like a half minute to consider your top 3. Don't say anything yet. So, take your top 3. Now, I'm just gonna ask for a show of hands. We're not trying to convince anyone. So who likes agenda? Okay, I'm gonna, actually, do we know how many people we have here? Ballpark.
Not exactly.
100. Okay, so I think I counted something like 70. Okay, what about expected outcome? I'm wrong? No. Okay. Expected outcome, that's, okay, let's say 25. It's Agile estimation, don't worry about it. What about this guy, rules of engagement? Okay, roles. Yeah. Participants, so who should come? Okay. Time box. Okay, looks like we'll succeed. This. Staying on track. Okay. This long one. 1, 2. Non-judgmental discussion. Review takeaways and who's in charge of what. Okay. Allow divergence. That was some form of flexibility. Exactly 0. This one, parking lot for the later items. Okay, and safe atmosphere. Okay, interesting. So, we've just taken what, 5 minutes. As a group, we think that the top things that a meeting should have in order to succeed are agenda, time box, and clarity on who's coming, and a review at the end of, what are we doing and who's doing that, right? And the expected outcome. This is an example of facilitation of a collaborative meeting. Notice that this is collaborative even though everything you've done, you did in silence. Everything you did on your own, entirely. I did not just waltz into the meeting and say, all right, 100 nice people, what should we have in the meeting? Right? That doesn't usually end well. Okay? Whether we agree with this or not, if we care about the outcome, because we're going to apply it, or it's going to matter to us somehow, then that's what we do. Okay? That's just what we do. I call this a collaborative meeting. What's the meaning of collaboration, by the way?
Working together toward an outcome.
Almost. working together towards an outcome, almost.
For the shared
outcome. We have shared responsibility over the outcome, okay? A lot of the trouble your teams get into is because they don't truly share responsibility for the outcome. They just show up, right? Because that's what the organization has conditioned them to do. And one of the things you as Agile leaders can do, whether you're internal to the team as contributors or you're their boss or Scrum Master or whatever, is to rekindle the desire to actually care, because everybody has it, okay? And so we want to have collaboration, because now we can bring the good stuff out of everyone and succeed together. Pair programming, for instance, does not mean somebody watching over your shoulder, right? It means a collaborative activity specifically to creational software, okay? Because when we share ownership of the outcome, we bring our best selves to this, right? So I just want to show you what I think you really, really want to have in a meeting. Very unsurprisingly, it's similar to what you said. Number 4, we didn't quite touch on, but it simply means that if we are going to make a decision, how are we going to make that decision? For instance, in consensus, do we want majority? Do we want unanimity? Best of 5? Well, whatever. Okay, but we need to define this ahead of time. Otherwise, when the sponsor waltzes in the middle, we're going to have a hard time countering what you have to say. All right, safety. Which is the one Agile meeting that absolutely has to have safety? Retrospective. A meeting without safety, a retrospective without safety is a total waste of your time. Safety for what? Honesty, no, but safety from what? What will not happen because of safety? Recrimination, reprisal. Everything you will say will be held against you, right? A lot of people believe that. Okay, I want to give you a few tips that I like to use every time I facilitate. Whenever I facilitate a meeting, especially a new one for me, I spend between 2 and 3 times as long as the meeting itself is going to be just in preparation. Okay? I have a 3-hour session with 15 VPs and directors in the company next week. The whole session is going to be half instruction in Agile, so they understand what they're getting themselves into. The rest is, do we even want this thing? I'm preparing a lot, right? Even though I have the knowledge, I can't just waltz in and say, well, here's what it is. Right? I have to prepare. This, facilitators are, the flip chart warriors, right? The reason we use flip charts and capture stuff in Word on the screen or stuff like this is because there's so much going on in a conversation, and if it does not get captured, it just evaporates, and then people forget it. And if you want to have informed decisions, you have to write stuff down visibly. Dysfunction. People don't talk, people steamroll over others, don't show up, whatever it is. You cannot handle dysfunction once it started effectively. The best way is to be proactive about it and have one-on-one conversations with the potential offenders ahead of time. Because once it starts, the best you can do is damage control. This one always makes me laugh. I get to observe a lot of Scrum Masters and coaches and as I help them grow, and they come up with exercises and games and simulations for their teams, and every time people misunderstand their instructions for the game or simulation, every time. And the instruction can be as simple as, here are 3 stickies, write 3 words. Really, I've seen that. Oh, should we write 3 words on each sticky or 1 on each? And what if I only want 2 stickies? So you need to give groups super clear instructions, right? What you just saw in the demonstration was an example of silent work. Silent work means that we do stuff on our own and then we somehow share it, but we don't argue or bicker or make the case. You know how in many retrospectives, people start by writing cards and then they end up putting them on the wall. That's an example of silent work. You can do this in many, many situations. And lastly, how you open the meeting is exactly how it will run. Do you ever go to iteration planning as a participant, let's say, and the product owner is there or the Scrum Master is there, and they're just sitting down, shuffling papers, looking at their phone. People kind of, trickle in, shoot the breeze, and so on, and you just wait for the thing to start. And eventually the guy gets up and says, okay, hi everybody, we're here to plan the iteration. Yay. Right? It's totally different if you start standing up, if you have the energy, and you say, hi, we're here for iteration planning. Yes, we have been to this movie before. Remember, the purpose is, what are we going to do in the next 2 weeks to make a difference? Are you with me? Okay, there's a difference, right? So the first minute will make or break, right? You don't have to be theatrical. Just have the energy to encourage people to even want to be there. Something I would love for you to have. This is a program I've put together. It turns out that people start Agile and get into trouble in very predictable ways. So much so that I've collected the top 20 ways that, the things that people constantly ask me. How do we get the product owner to be involved in accountable? What do we do about those managers, right? How much unit test coverage is useful? How do we run effective retrospectives? By the way, what worked well and needs improvement? You only do this a couple times. It gets old. So we don't run effective retrospectives, they're repeating that 20 times over. So you're welcome to get this. So far, I think over 1,000 people have been reading this. They seem to like it, so it must be useful. Yeah. Wow, almost on time.
Thank you very much. Anything like 5 minutes for additional questions?
By all means.
You said the facilitation meeting you prepare 2 or 3 times?
As long as the meeting is going to take.
So what do you feel that preparation, I mean, that could be 6, a facilitation meeting can be hours.
So
what do you prepare for during all that time?
If it's a standard meeting, that's iteration planning, so all the standard stuff, right? I just need to make sure that the right people are going to show up and the data for the meeting is there, such as, yeah, we actually have a backlog, right? Something like that. But if it's a different type of meeting, if it's chartering, if it's a project retro, is it the design review, is it an executive review, what have you, okay? I need to understand this. So I need clarity on the purpose, right? So for instance, I've just been contracted again by one of my clients in Toronto to do a retrospective. That's generic. A retrospective about what? Oh, they've done the first phase of the project to discuss the project methodology. Okay, well, what do you want out of this retro? Do you want binding decisions? Do you want to examine data? Well, what is it? Okay, who's going to attend? What sort of process do we want, right? I don't want anybody just coming up there and talking. What can we do to make this effective? With the same client, for instance, just a couple months ago, we did a design review for an early stage product. I actually organized people to simulate the thing using paper. Okay, so that was a process I kind of had to come up with. It wasn't obvious. They weren't even expecting it. They were thinking that, it's a design review, an architect will stand and talk. So you need to do all of this stuff. Yeah. Yes. I really wish I had copies of the book for you. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Do IOUs from there?
So yeah, we can do IOUs. I mean, okay, on Amazon you can get it for 32, but I was going to offer it for 25. If you want to do something with that, then I'll just send the book to you at my own expense. I don't mind because I want people to read it. Also have the electronic version.